Welcome to Talent Titans, the podcast where we bring you entrepreneurs and leaders from the global staffing industry. I'm your host, Suky. Now let's jump right on in and welcome today's Titan. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Talent Titans. I have a very, very, very special guest today, Tracey Both from the Mirillion Group and my best friend. Tracey, welcome.
Thank
Everyone
you so much.
already probably knows that already, right?
Well, if they don't, then they're not paying close enough attention.
Absolutely. Tracey, who are you? What are you? Who's Mirillion? Tell us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on your renowned podcast. I'm honored to be here. So my name is Tracey Both. I am a co-founder and managing partner at the Mirillion Group. We have been serving our clients for 13 years now. Actually, in October, it'll be 13 years. And we specialize in professional services. So we have verticals that service our clients in legal, compliance, HR, innovative technology, accounting and finance, and in engineering and construction. And then we also work sort of on the periphery of those as well. So in more of the specialized or niche type roles. We work across Canada. We also have clients in Europe and in the US, and we have offices in Toronto and in Montreal. And we are a small but mighty team. And my business partner and I came together because we had worked together at a large international firm and had, it was a great place to kind of get your feet wet and start and learn the basics. But after several years, as I'm sure you can appreciate, you learn what you don't like as much as what you do like about this industry. So we were able to kind of gather what it is that we really valued in this industry and what resonated with us from an integrity and kind of moral standpoint, and left behind the other stuff that you typically see in larger firms, like the red tape, the bureaucracy, the inability to pivot quickly, the agility. So we're having a great time doing what we're doing, and we love what we do and love the people that we work with. So thanks again, and I'm really excited to be here.
Amazing. So we're gonna dive straight in.
Sure.
And I want to start off by asking you, what's the biggest shift you've seen in how companies are approaching hiring, sort of like in the last 2 years or so? And what does that shift mean for candidates that are either passively looking or actively looking?
Well, I think, there have been several shifts specifically since we came out of the COVID pandemic. But I think the largest one that our industry is working with, embracing, learning about, that is really going to have the biggest impact is AI, right? AI, automation, and people analytics within recruitment. So AI has become kind of a core part of talent acquisition, and we're noticing that a lot of our clients have started their journey in AI and automation, and how that intertwines with their talent acquisition. And on the flip side as well, it's not just a trend, right? It really is evolving the way that we work. And on the recruitment side as well, like on the agency side, we're definitely spending a lot of time figuring out how to integrate AI and automation into a people-centric business, right? So I'd say that's probably the biggest. AI can help with things like streamlining processes. So resume screening, candidate matching, scheduling, even video interviewing, and the analysis that comes from that, right? Like getting that readout from that interview. And there are reports out there that there's definitely an increased efficiency from using AI tools, and it's helping with the hiring time and interview volume. So I'd say that's probably the biggest trend that we're seeing. But with that, obviously, the upside is the speed to market, interview volume increasing, cutting hiring time decreasing. But there's concerns, right, on the other side of that. So there's fairness and bias, and how you counteract that as well when you do integrate more of these automated and AI functionalities into the process.
That is so true, because it's not the AI, it's the programming, and it is people that are programming it. So that's where you got to be really mindful of that conscious and unconscious bias, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Let me ask you this. You read a lot about candidates quote unquote complaining, if I can use that word loosely, about how AI is hindering them from getting in front of a hiring manager.
Hmm.
Right. And on one hand, I totally get it, because AI is a, if the person does this, you do this. If they do that, you do that. Right. So I get all of that. But do you so that means they're saying loyalty is dead, right? So
Okay.
as loyalty is dead in the job market, companies, candidates can't access the jobs. Would you say loyalty has died? Candidate loyalty is dead.
No, I wouldn't say candidate loyalty is dead. You know what? It's interesting. I kind of I would reframe that actually, because what defines loyalty, right? Is it job hopping? Is it not buying into the place that you're currently at? There could be a lot of aspects
Good
that
point.
go into what people consider loyal. There's been a shift, right? Like there was the great resignation, right? Right after COVID, there was job hopping, these kind of key terms that us in the industry were kind of having to work with or work against. But I think really what we're seeing is more of what a new term that's been coined is job hugging. And that I'd say post 2023, that's really what we're seeing is more, quit rates are at historic lows. Job hugging has kind of become this buzzword. So basically what that means is that employees are kind of clinging to their current roles due to uncertainty. Another word for it is the great
Ah,
stay, right? Instead of
yep,
the great
yep.
resignation. So why is that? Well, I think obviously there's a few reasons why we're seeing more of a job hugging, and this job hopping I think is more maybe what people see in a vacuum and then feel that that's really what's happening in the market, and I don't think it is. In Canada, I mean, job tenures remained relatively stable. There
Hmm.
hasn't been a big rise or fall of tenure with people who have been in their jobs for quite a while. So what leads to them staying where they are? Well, I'd say right now it's economic uncertainty, right? We're still kind of in this
Yep.
area where it's volatile. Interest rates haven't, there's kind of a touch and go there. There's been hiring freezes or a freeze in place with employers and workers. So I think that economic uncertainty is causing people to be a little bit more hesitant when it comes to leaving their position. I don't think that's loyalty. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't call that
Yeah.
loyalty. I
Yeah.
think that's just more a reflection of the market. The other point that we've seen is there's a cooling of wage incentives, right? Like in 2021, 2022, because companies had let so many people go during COVID, there was this run on getting talent back. And
Yep.
what's the quickest way to get talent back? Give them an incentive, an economic incentive, right? So the wage gains that came from job switching was pretty massive, right? And I'd say in the past 2 years, that's kind of collapsed a bit. Like that's really leveled out. And there really is no difference, I'd say, now in the type of economic advantage you're going to get from making a move or even staying where you are, right? Like, there's not a lot of raises happening. There's not a lot of bonus incentives being paid out. And to move laterally, you're not seeing the kind of jumps that you were seeing a couple of years ago. So that talent leverage is shifted back to employers, especially now with, fewer openings. They just have a little bit more control over the market now. So fear has, I think, replaced ambition, at least in the past couple of years. And I think that'll change again, but I think that's where we are right now.
Yeah. It's almost better the devil you know.
Yeah.
And also, an analogy came to mind as you were talking. People are staying in a marriage for the sake of the kids, not because they want to be there. So they're staying in a job
Yeah.
because they need. We all have bills to pay. We all have bills to meet at the end of the week. We all have our goals and things like that. So I love how you shifted the loyalty, because something I've seen over and over again, and I get it, is some influencers are really pushing this, is the, well, company has no loyalty to me. Why should I have loyalty to the company?
Hmm.
And it's very, very much a case of, well, do it back to them. And I actually don't see that, because I still talk to candidates who don't have that mindset. They don't have that, well, it's just my employer.
Hmm.
It's just a job. We spend so much time at work. You can't have that mindset.
Yeah,
What do you think?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of goes toward there's not as much ambition to make that move right now. But you know how
Hmm.
these things work. I mean, the market is cyclical. We've seen all sides of it. When things start opening up, we're going to see a lot of people who have stayed put out of fear really starting to dip their toe back in the market. And, at that point, it's going to be a matter of, will it shift back, right? Like, will it shift back from the employers having, leveraging the market to candidates again? Because when you start looking, okay, how are you going to incentivize or attract the best talent out there once you are able to hire again, right? So you still, even though the employers kind of have leverage right now, it markets never stay the same for very long. So
No, no. And something we are definitely seeing with our clients, and our clients are starting seeing it with theirs as well. It's all over the news. Is this no? You have to come back to an office,
mm, yeah,
right? You have to now, not necessarily 5 days,
yes,
more of a
yeah,
hybrid situation, and so many candidates during COVID moved out of major cities because they thought they weren't going to have to come back to the office.
that's right.
Are you seeing that, and what impact is that having?
Well, I think the impact that it's going to really have is when the clients or the companies are going to have to attract that talent. Right now, I've just anecdotally, I've spoken to quite a few candidates who have moved out of, commuting distance, let's call it,
Yep.
to where they need to be. And, some, I'm not going to say ask for permission, but some kind of made their intentions known to their employer. And at the time, it was fine. And others did not, which probably was not the best idea. But now, with some of the larger employers in the GTA calling people back 4 days a week, there's a real struggle, right? There's a struggle with the candidates who do really like their job and don't really want to be back out on the market, and others who are seeing it as a kick in the butt to get out there and see what else is out there. But there will be natural attrition from that. And then I think there
Yep.
will also be people who just kind of suck it up and make it work. The other thing, though, that I've noticed, again, anecdotally, is that when companies put these mandates in place, they're not for like enforced the same way across an organization, right? So,
Okay.
they are told what to say to their report tos, as in like, no, be prepared. It's 4 days a week. This is the way we're rolling, get on board, sort
Yep.
of thing. But really, it's, there is some discretion within the groups themselves, right? So, it could be that, yes, this is the overarching mandate, but we'll leave it to the director or to the, whoever is in charge of the group to really kind of enforce it. So, and I think that can also be a problem, right? It's like having kids. If you don't set the boundary, they're never going to know kind of what the expectation is. So, in a way, if you're going to put a mandate in, I believe that you should be enforcing it, because if not, it's just going to cause a whole host of problems. But sorry, I kind of went off track, but going
No,
back to
no,
your
go for it.
question,
Carry on.
yeah, is when it comes to these candidates who have left, the commutable distance to the major employers, they're going to have a little bit of a tough time on their hands, right? Because we're seeing that although there is an evolution of work happening that has been happening since COVID and the ability to kind of work from anywhere, now there is going to be a reckoning, I think, with candidates. I
Yeah.
think the clients are a little bit more, steadfast in what their expectations are, but the candidates are going to have to decide what is really important to me, right? Like, what motivates people typically? Compensation, right? It's not everything, but it matters. So,
Yep.
that could get
It's
them
in the
back.
top.
If
It's in
it's
the top three.
it's a
It's in
hundred
the
percent in
top
the
three
top
for.
three. And
Yeah.
if you're going to ask me to come back into the office, what's my play? What's my leverage? Is that asking for a bump in salary to cover my commuting expenses? Is that having other perks, right? Like that could be built in, or extra expensible aspects of your job. But really, I'd say if clients are looking to attract the best people out there, flexibility is a non-negotiable. But it needs to kind of go both ways. I think there's a happy medium in there somewhere, whether it's 2 or 3 days in
Yep.
an office. So I think both sides need to be flexible. There's a lot of flexibility or expectations that are thrown on the client side, but candidates should expect to be flexible as well, right? I mean, work-life balance has probably never been better. I think that's good for humanity. We have to look at what's best for the evolution of work, not just what's best for the bottom line of an organization, because that's never going to resonate with your workers. So I think finding that balance, and that's going to be different for everybody and every company, is going to really be the differentiator for both sides when they're looking to make a move for their career.
You're right. When my daughter got the job she's in now,
Hmm.
they knew she didn't live local, right? So everybody knew that. No traffic is about what, 40, 50 minutes. Traffic double that easily.
Hmm.
But they went to the you must come back to the office and took just the point about the flexibility. So what they gave her as an option was just adjust her times.
Mm.
So she doesn't have to worry about to get there for 9 o'clock. She'd have to
Right.
probably leave 7:15. So they literally pushed that back. So it kind of reduced the commute time.
Hmm.
But they were able to do that for her. Not everybody's going to be in a position to do that.
Yeah, not everyone's going to be in the position to do that. And not everyone is going to be willing to do that, right? Like, depending on the
Yeah,
size of the organization. But I think that's a really good compromise. Even having, and I know this is not a new concept, but just reinforcing kind of core hours, right? What are the core hours that we expect someone to be in the office? And whether that's like 10 to 3. So, work your 8 hours or 7.5 hours around that. But between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., we expect to see you in the office. So
yeah,
I think just even and that's not daunting, right? Like that is something that I think is a good compromise for organizations where you're setting the boundary, you're setting clear expectations, but you're still giving that flexibility, like your daughter's getting, so that she can come in, not feel like she's stressed out or always behind the eight ball and getting in on time, and she's also able to show up for her other commitments.
yeah. Because I just want to go back to what you said about coming back to the office and asking for a pay increase to cover cost and things like
Hmm.
that. So when my daughter took this job and the salary, it was based on the fact that she'd have no commute, right?
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
commute.
Yeah.
And so therefore she didn't have to have a car. So there wasn't all of that insurance and petrol and easily $1,000 a month.
Hmm.
Um, so she was fortunate she was able to have one of our cars, right? So
Right.
she was able to solve that. But again, not everybody is in a position to solve that. And that's where the companies need to be a little bit more open minded, I guess, right? Because you can't, to exactly what you just said, you can't just expect one, that's not a compromise
Right.
when one side is giving everything,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
That's
for
not,
sure. And even think about the cohort of people who came into the workforce during COVID. I mean, these are
yeah,
kids who graduated from, college or university or just entered the workforce remotely, right? And were onboarded remotely, and were expected to perform remotely. And now they're part of this group that are going to be part of a return to office mandate that have never known what it's like to work in an office. That could be a
good
good
point.
thing for some of them, right? Like
Yeah,
learning how to
yeah,
interact and that sort of thing. But they may, and whether it's true or whether it's not, as far as their compensation being considered when they work, that they didn't have to commute in, employers have never really paid for anyone to commute, right? So it's kind of a far-fetched sort of thing, but
yeah,
that's another aspect of expenses that they haven't had to deal with, and now they're being asked to
yeah,
come into the office, and it's like, oh crap, well that's $500 a month for Go Train, right? Or whatever
yeah,
it is. So, and time. So yeah, there will be pain, there will be growing pains as we kind of settle back in, but we're a resilient group of people, and we'll get through it. But I don't think being rigid on either side is really what's going to get us there.
no, no, that's not a compromise. That's not a negotiation.
Right.
That's an order,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we all have
Exactly.
freedom. We all have free will to say no. I get that, but
Hmm.
when you have companies saying no to the candidate, every company says no. We want hybrid. They're just like, I only want to work from home. Their options are so limited. Of
Hmm.
course, unless they start a business of their own and things like that. But when companies are saying no, we want everybody must be in the office 5 days a week, what they're saying no to is a great candidate potentially.
Yeah.
So there's that compromise. So I want to shift back to clients.
Sure.
For those clients that are trying to stand out in a competitive market, right?
Hmm.
Some would say, but the market's not competitive. Well, it is.
Oh
The
yeah.
market is, yeah, we're definitely doing well now compared to what we were doing end of Q1, for argument's sake. So those clients that want to stand out in a competitive market, what do you wish they would really understand? The one thing they would understand about what candidates want these days?
I think that the top three really haven't changed. They may have changed order. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
going back to what we said, compensation is still top of the list. People,
Hmm.
every time we talk to someone, it's what are they paying, right? What's the compensation range? So I'd say total package, so salary transparency. They want you to pull back the curtain a bit on salary and how it's structured, right? So what's my base salary? What's the bonus? What do I need to do to achieve that bonus? Have people achieve that? What's the average bonus people get? What are the benefits like? Like they want to see before they sign on the dotted line. I want to see your benefits coverage. I want to see the package. How much do I have to pay? How much does a company cover? Is there an RSP program? So all of those perks are still at the top of the list. Wellness programs, right, are a big one as well. I have one client that gives a one-time home office setup of $500. So that definitely still comes into the decision making. The other one that we've already talked about that is huge, that is probably just as important as compensation, is flexibility. It's a non-negotiable. People want flexibility. You can dig your toes in the sand as a client and say, no, we're all in this many days a week. And that's fine. But know that you're probably going to miss a big segment of the talent pool because of your inability to be flexible, right? So whether it's a hybrid option, remote option, people are expecting some level of flexibility. And like you had alluded to earlier, whether it's flexible hours or, even understanding that personal commitments are highly valued. So, even if it's you have to be in this many days a week and, that's a non-negotiable, being more flexible when it comes to, hey, I got to take my kid to the dentist, or hey, it's the first day of school. Can I work from home on that day? Things like that will buy a lot of loyalty from candidates and
Hmm.
be a differentiator when they're considering who to join. The other thing, especially with the generations coming into the workforce now, and also, those who have been with organizations for a while and are looking to make a move, is, values, purpose and values. So is there an alignment with the company who is recruiting me and my values? Is there an alignment there? Are they big on social responsibility? Those are starting to influence people's decisions to join a company or to stay at a company. And I'll give you a little example. I was talking to a candidate who's quite senior actually, and who had grown up in the bank and had been offered a lot of growth opportunities and had taken those opportunities and really proven herself. And I reached out to her, and I was kind of surprised that, that she wanted to have a conversation. And what she said to me was, you know what, this place has given me a lot of opportunities. I feel loyal. There is a sense of loyalty, but something's changed. Something has shifted in the past. I don't want to bring it back to Trump, but since Trump's been elected, where there's been a rollback of values alignment. And one of the
Wow.
ones that resonated with her was in the return to office mandate. She sits on an advisory board within her group, and they had said, this is what we're doing. We're rolling out 4 days a week. And she said, have you considered how this is going to impact mothers in the workforce? And
Yeah.
she wasn't looking for a particular answer. What she was looking for was them to say, yes, we have taken that into consideration. We've done, we've done the research. We've polled the employees. We've, whatever the case is. And the
Yep.
response to her was no.
Wow.
That's it. No, we have not considered that. And we are not going to consider that. This is just the way it is. So that really showed her that there was a values misalignment there, and that her employer was moving in a direction that no longer resonated. So that, coupled with a few other things, including pulling funding from like the Pride Parade, or rolling back DEI initiatives, you don't think that this is going to have an impact, but I'll tell you, your high performers, your future stars, this is something that is going to drive them away. And it was really interesting listening to her tell me about her experience with these kind of cracks that are starting to form in alignment. So I'd say for companies, purpose and values definitely matter to candidates, as well as growth opportunities internally, right? Like, are you investing in the people that you already have? Is there opportunities for training, for mentorship? for internal mobility, right? Like this candidate had great experience being offered opportunities within her organization. So she never really had felt the need to look outside. But I think that that's kind of a blind spot for a lot of organizations that they really need to be aware of.
Well, without going down the political rabbit hole, but just ask the CEO of Target, right?
Yeah,
He's now out of a job, right? So it does. You're right. I don't. But you said something earlier on that I want to go back to.
sure.
When you were talking about the compensation,
Mm.
you said they are asking. I think you said, "What's the average earnings or something?"
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah,
for
that's the new one.
bonuses.
I've not heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've seen it with candidates who are, let's say they're making a move for a small increase or, a
Okay.
lateral move for the same type of compensation. Then, okay, that's when bonuses come into play. So yes, you could have a 15% targeted bonus, but how many people in the organization are reaching that 15%, right? Like what's the average bonus payout? And, it's not every candidate that asks that, but the ones
Yep.
who are more interested in overall compensation as opposed to base salary, that's something that they are looking
Salespeople.
for clarity on. Yeah, sales or
Yeah.
even, in larger organizations where they're overseeing a team and, bonus might be tied to the productivity of the group. There's various reasons why they'd want to see that. But if you're going to use the bonus as an incentive to attract people, you have to be able to show some analytics on it, right? And the ability to reach that bonus and how you do that. Like, what are the metrics involved in getting that bonus?
You know what? I love your response to this. So any hiring manager, doesn't matter where you are, what vertical you recruit, what role you're recruiting for,
Hmm.
this is golden. The change, the transparency, and what candidates are actually looking for. And your story about the lady in the bank, she spoke with her feet. She
Hmm.
marched out, or is in the process of marching out, right?
Yep.
So let's flick to candidates.
Sure.
So those candidates that are looking for a role right now, whether they're in a role right now and they just want to make another move, or whether they are unemployed right now. So,
Yep.
timing is of the essence, so to speak. What's the one outdated job search habit that they got to drop right now? Stop doing that. What is that?
I would say low personalization. So low personalization and it equals low impact, right? So what do I mean by
Okay.
that? Applying through the ATS, right? Like just spamming one resume out to a bunch of applicant tracking systems
Oh,
and not tracking where you're applying, not following up, thinking that one size fits all is good enough. In this market, it's not good enough. So the modern job market right now, I'd say rewards candidates who value the clarity, skills proof, and an authentic human connection. So how can a candidate prove that that they're more interested in an opportunity than someone else?
so
Um,
that genuine interest
that genuine interest. And the other thing
rather than
too,
a job.
yeah, and
Yeah.
just kind of having one resume, one standard resume, and sending that one resume everywhere. Sending, a cover letter that's a whole page long that is too generic. Like, take some time to personalize your applications. I think that's a big one. The other one, because you know what, it's not necessarily a numbers game. You're not going to throw a
Yep.
hundred resumes out there and have X number of bites. I don't believe in those statistics when it comes to candidates getting callbacks from employers because there's so many other things at play. But one thing, honestly, that I think candidates overlook or don't put enough emphasis on is strategic networking and referrals. 85% of jobs are filled via networking. So referrals and networking skip ATS filters, right? You're not kind of
Yep.
caught up in this black hole of
Using an
ATS.
agency.
Using an
Working.
agency.
Yep.
Absolutely. Like leverage other relationships, right? So whether it's using an agency to leverage their buy-in that they already have with a client or their ability to get you to the top of the pile, whether it's even commenting thoughtfully on like LinkedIn posts to be seen, right? Reaching out to the author of that post with something that resonated with you, and then basically nurturing relationships before you need them. So whether that's, reaching out to some agencies that are experts in the area that you're looking to work, whether it's linking in with people on LinkedIn in the jobs that you're interested in, at the companies you're interested in, networking events are happening again. So getting out to some of those, even webinars, but really kind of utilizing and leveraging your network and referrals so that you bypass that kind of black hole of randomness when it
Yeah.
comes to
But
applying.
yeah, I just thought of something as you were talking, going back to the ATS, right? So something I've been seeing on LinkedIn is getting a CV that is ATS. I can't remember the words they're using. So literally, apparently your CV needs to be worded a certain way
Mm-hmm.
for for an ATS to pick it up. I always look at that and I'm like, no, I don't see that. Yes, you need a CV that is relevant to the job you are applying, and then the ATS system will pick it up because, like everything else, they're looking for certain things. But this one size fits all,
Mm-hmm.
get an ATS, let us rewrite your CV because, for the modern ATS. I personally don't see the need for that. I see the need for a CV written, as you said, for the type of job you want and you are applying for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yeah.
go on.
And the other thing is too, as we talked about in the beginning, talent acquisition is using AI much more in the screening process, right? And their ATSs have an AI capability within them. But
Yep.
then, so on the flip side of that, candidates need to use kind of AI as like their co-pilot, right? Like it's not out there doing all the work for you, but at least it's kind of giving you the baseline. So whether it's tailoring a resume to a job description, or even AI can even help you prep, right, for interviews. So it can
Yep.
generate mock questions. So if you put a job posting in and say, what kind of questions, should I prepare myself for? Things like that, just to prepare yourself a little bit better. I mean, if AI is being used on one side, certainly it's going to be used on the other side, or we should be
Yeah.
prepared for it. But you want to make sure that the output of it, it's your assistant, right? AI is assisting you, it's your
Yep.
co-pilot, but you need to humanize it, right? So it's not your voice. It's going to help you, get there. And then you need to make sure that that human element comes through as well.
Yeah. I love that piece of advice you just gave. It works on both sides. Key in the
Hmm.
job description, key
Hmm.
in. And the truth of the matter is, there are some basic fundamentals that doesn't matter what type of job you're applying for, they're going to ask you,
Hmm.
right? So certain ways and certain questions. But when you're actually applying for a job that you actually are capable of doing, what you those questions and being able to answer those more intricate questions that only somebody with the experience are going to be able to do, prep how you're going to respond to those,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? So how, I mean, I'm not a technical person, but give them a project that you worked on, right?
Yeah.
Talk them through the project, talk them through a the art of storytelling, right? So tell the story of how you actually done it, because hiring managers are also very aware that some people, not everybody, but some people, they literally just go to AI and say, "Tell me how I answer this question," and then
Hmm.
they understand how to answer it and they answer it based on the AI, but they can't go that layer or two deeper.
Yeah,
And again,
absolutely.
that goes back to what you said. How do you differentiate yourself?
Hmm.
Get out your crystal ball for this one.
Okay.
If you had to predict the next big hiring trend that'll surprise most companies, what is that going to be?
Hiring trend. You know what? I don't know. I guess this is a hiring trend. It impacts more so the process than an actual trend as far as, where the
Okay.
hiring is going to happen. But I think just jumping off of what we just said, I think there's going to be like a rise in AI to AI hiring. So what do I mean by
Yep.
that? We know that employers are using AI, right, to screen, to schedule, to set up interviews, to kind of get through that first volume process, right, of candidate applicants. I think we're going to be moving into a world where candidates deploy their own AI to streamline their job search. So, candidates like we just said, they'll run their resumes through an AI filter. They'll search for jobs proactively using AI. I mean, you could go to ChatGPT or any of these other ones and type in, the prompt of send me a list of companies in, the Greater Toronto Hamilton area that are hiring for this. And it will spit out job postings that, that are currently up or that have been. So candidates, tailoring their applications, like we just said, even interfacing with their, the AI recruiter systems. I think that there will be AI on both sides, and it could dramatically reshape the hiring dynamic. So yes, it raises efficiency, it cuts hiring time, but it also, I guess there will be questions and concerns around authenticity, right? Authenticity,
Yep.
fairness, and then there has to be that human oversight in the end, right? So I think what we're going to end up seeing is, although there will be automation on both sides and candidates may be getting even coaching from AI, right?
Yep.
Dealing with chatbots that employers are using as kind of a first interaction with organizations. But what that's going to mean is there's going to have to be guardrails, right? And those guardrails might be things like, and we're already seeing it, moving back to in-person interviews right off the bat, right? So yes, you get screened through AI, but then there's got to be that human touch point pretty early on. And I think we're going to see that through in-person interviews, and also an increase in AI detection software, right? So
Oh, okay.
because and I've seen it, we've seen it for a bit. This has happened, and we've all heard stories, right, where a talent acquisition person has a great resume come in, they have a great interview with someone, and then on the first day someone else shows up,
Yeah.
or they show up and they can't actually code. They can't do the job,
Yep.
right? So there's
Yep.
got to be that guardrail. And I think as we move towards more AI and automation in the process, there will have to be more like human oversight and intervention to make sure that bias is being eliminated, fairness is kept up, and that there is validation, right? Like a human validation.
I think no, you bang on, because I was speaking to somebody a couple of months back, senior candidate. He's in the tech world. He'd applied for a job. His first interview was an AI interview. Being a tech person, he was like, okay, cool, this is neat.
Mm-hmm.
Second interview was also, I can't remember what the second, but it wasn't a human being, right? It wasn't somebody living and breathing like you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the third stage was going to be the human interaction. Well, he didn't move forward because he'd done the initial AI interview. Okay, cool. AI, this is neat. But he wanted to speak to a real person.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to speak to. I guess there's what I'm saying is there's a danger of companies over engineering AI and
Yeah.
automation.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
I,
see that. I can definitely see that being an issue. And there's got to be a way as well, like, considering inclusion where, if there's someone who is unable to interact effectively with AI, or, are there accommodations for people who the process might be detrimental to, where you move to that human connection earlier, or, there's a prompt in a chatbot or something that moves you through the process with a real live human as opposed to a robot. So there's all these considerations, and I think we're just on the cusp of it still. Like, a lot of places have implemented or integrated AI into the hiring, but there's a lot of kinks to work out still. But as it evolves and as the candidate pool becomes more sophisticated and utilizes AI on their side as well, it just raises a bunch of pitfalls and just things to be aware of and to guard against. So I think that's what we're going to see in the next couple of years for sure. And that doesn't mean that the robots are taking our jobs. Absolutely not,
yeah.
right? It's just a matter of how we retrain recruiters to use AI to free up more of their time to deal with the human elements of the job, the relationship building, the empathy, right? Like, computers aren't empathetic. You want someone that understands what's important to you and can relay that to potential clients and that sort of thing. So the human element will never be taken out of it. It's just, is there a point that it makes sense to have the computers, the robots handle the volume to get us down to a point where our impact is greater when we bring that human element into it?
You said something really important. And again, I'm paraphrasing. It's not a one size fits all, because if your first line of application is AI,
Mm-hmm.
your ideal candidate may just not be savvy
Yeah.
when it comes to
Yes.
AI, right? English may not be their first language. There's just so
Hmm.
many different ways of
That's
doing it.
such a good point, Suki, because going back to the, the accommodation and the inclusion aspect, yeah, like what if, or sorry, and how that affects fairness, right? Because you could overlook someone who just isn't savvy with
Yeah,
AI or isn't aware of the tools to, make their application stand out because of AI. So are you going to miss out on some really good candidates because they're just not sophisticated when it comes to how these AI tools can help their candidacy? Yeah, potentially. And like, how do you limit that, right? So yeah, that's a really good point.
yeah, because the truth of the matter, if I just speak for myself, if I go online and I have to talk to a chat box and all the rest of it, the bot just drives me crazy. So I just say, forget it,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
just say, forget it. 9 times out of 10, I will say, forget it, unless I really, really, really want that. But even then, the
Right.
frustration level has really shot up. Call me old school.
Hmm.
I'm that person that just wants to be able to pick up the phone. I don't mind. Eventbrite's a great example to use.
Hmm.
As you know, that's the events I hosted there. If I have a technical question, I don't mind asking in the chat, but they do a great job of at some stage you can say, just give me a human being,
Hmm.
right? Let me talk, I can't remember the language I'm paraphrasing, but and then I'm just like, okay, let me get somebody,
Yeah.
right? And then yes, you have to wait, but they give you the option, is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
There's others that'll happily just do it without speaking to a live person. So I think it's important that companies are mindful of that, because one entry point isn't going to work for everybody else, for
Hmm.
everybody.
Hmm.
So I know we're coming up to time, but I do want to ask you one final question.
Sure.
Going back to the candidates, and we've kind of touched it, but what's the most common blind spot you see that holds candidates back? And how do they tip this and use it to their advantage?
I'd probably go back to what we talked about earlier as far as how you interact with organizations who are looking, right? Who are advertising. So I think the biggest blind spot again is throwing like submitting your resume and not following up or not tracking. Like you really need to consider your job search as a like you're something to project manage, right? Like really be that
Yep.
project manager. So I think people are not tracking like the amount of candidates that I say, okay, I'm going, like, where have you applied recently? Or I'm going to send you a list of places. Let me know if you've applied. Like, they're not tracking where they're sending out their resumes.
Yeah.
And it's a waste of time, especially when you're dealing with agencies, right? Because we then submit to clients and the clients are like, oh, we've already received that resume. And it doesn't make us look great. It doesn't make them look great, right? So we want to enhance someone's job journey, their job application journey, their career journey. And so what we need from them is someone who is really on top of what their job search looks like. So I'd say, again, leveraging your network, even if you don't have one, that human touch, reaching out, do a little research, right? Find out, and you can do this through LinkedIn, through just Google searches, probably through AI, but finding out who the person in charge of hiring for the role is that you're interested in and reach out to them directly. Make that human connection. And on the other side, as I had just said, is really track where you're applying, the types of roles. I had this candidate. Oh my God, she was amazing. She was a project manager, and she had a spreadsheet of every company, the day the job was posted, the day she applied,
Wow.
whether she's heard back. And I just thought that was brilliant. And really, it shouldn't be that surprising, right? Like that's what you should do if you're searching for a job. It basically is a project that you need to stay on top of. So I'd say reach out. Don't just apply and pray. Reach out to with a human connection, link in with people at the organization, manage your job applications like a project, and follow up is basically what I would say, because a lot happens, a lot gets lost in the filters, right? A lot gets lost on someone's email. So follow up and be impactful. Don't just send a resume with a cover letter that's super generic. Like really speak to the role you're applying to. And it takes a little bit of extra time, but the difference that it makes is astronomical.
Well, you brought up a really good point that I just want to go back
Hmm.
and just peel back a layer. You talked about when they've gone through an agency and you present the candidate and come say, hey, we received their CV 10 times for this job, this job, this job. Yes, not only does it make everybody look as if they've not had it doesn't reflect well on the candidate as well. But the key here is most reputable staffing agencies, we have relationships with the hiring managers, and we don't just submit the CV into their ATS. No, 99, not 99, but a number of times, especially the smaller independent agencies, we have a direct line into the hiring manager. We pick up the phone and we say, you need to talk to Tracey, and here's why. It's those we're able to give information and answer the questions.
Yeah.
And we have the trust with the hiring manager. They may still say, yes, we're going to see him, but can you get him to apply through and I'm not saying we're going to bypass the system, the process, but a true staffing professional is not just going to be, give me your CV, let me fire it off. No, they're going to have spent time with the candidate, got to know their motivators, the why. It's almost like we do the first interviews for the client, and then we're able to really, truly represent the person. So I think that's important as well.
Yeah.
Build relationships with recruiters in your niche.
It's so important. It's so important. I mean, and I guess, I don't see that as a blind spot. I think that the use of agencies and recruiters is not a secret anymore. It's not a well-kept secret, right? Like, we're all out there, but it's really kind of using every avenue available to you. So, get a referral to an agency from someone in a position that you want to be in, let's say like a friend of yours, and find out, who did they use, right? Like, who did they enjoy working with? I'm sure they're going to give you some unsolicited advice of who to avoid as well. And that's fine, right? But definitely, keep your avenues open, utilize every tool that you can to help open up your job search, but do it strategically. Like, it's like the old Jerry Maguire, help me help you. If you have a really well documented list of places you've already applied, or places you want to avoid, or places you really want to target, that's going to help your agency recruiter really open some doors for you and work strategically, as opposed to just not really knowing what it is that motivates you, the companies that you're interested in, and those sorts of things. So it all plays into, like you said, into that discussion we can have with clients that is going to be a differentiator in having them even meet with you. Like, if I call a client and say, listen, if you just look at the resume, you're not going to be interested, but you gotta trust me on this. Like, you need it. Like, the amount of times that has been the differentiator in getting through the door is priceless.
Yeah. CV can only tell you so much, right? There's only so much you get. It's that connection. We're coming up to time. In fact, we've gone a little over. For people, I mean, this has been great. We could carry on.
Oh, yeah.
But for clients and candidates that are like, you know what, Trace, that resonated, or candidates that's like, you know what, I like how you're thinking about me as a candidate or me as a client. How do they reach out to you?
So I am easy to find. So our website is Mirillion.ca. I am on LinkedIn, Tracey Both. My email is tboth@Mirillion.ca. I am very active on LinkedIn. Send me a message and I will respond to it, or, reach out to me directly through email, and I'd be happy to have a conversation. Always happy to have a chat.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure your details are in the show notes as well.
Excellent.
Trace, thank you ever so much for that. Really appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much, Suky. And I'm glad I finally made it on the show.
I know, finally, hey? It's been long overdue.
That's all right. There's more to come.
Yeah, exactly. I'll catch you later.
Okay. Thanks, Suky.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talent Titans, brought to you by Recruitment Professional Forum, where they're building a grassroots community for professionals and leaders in the recruitment industry to collaborate, advocate, and advance the profession. If you liked or were inspired by what you heard, make sure to follow, subscribe, and even leave a review. It lets more talented recruiters like you find the show. Until next time, keep on being a talent titan.